Hello, I'm Dr. Warren, and today we're going through some stuff because it's 4th of July. It's one of my favorite holidays, favorite summer holidays, and part of my purpose in this company and helping people with Lyme disease, comes from part of the Declaration for Independence, and it's one of my favorite, kind of patriotic quotes is, as Americans, we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I've always loved that. It's always been a part of, just growing up as an American, loving that quote. But when I was sick, one of the things that really hit me was I wasn't able to pursue what I wanted with the same gusto and fervor. I've always kind of been taught, maybe not as talented at something, you can work hard and you can still achieve things. And I've always been someone who could go for it. If you wanted to get better at basketball or better at piano or better at school, you could go work towards it. Part about being sick was I felt crippled from my ability to go pursue, whatever it was in life that I wanted to go for. And that's one thing for our patients and for you if you're sick is we want you to be healthy enough to go do whatever it is that you're here to do, whatever problem in the world that you see that you want to go try to fix and make the world a better place. We want you to be healthy enough to go be part of your family and part of your marriage and part of your community and all these different things. And so the quote from the Declaration of Independence, always kind of rings true into my heart. I went through like 75 different, 4th of July quotes or 100 different 4th of July quotes. And I picked this one from President Truman. America was not built on fear. America was built on courage, on imagination, and an unbeatable determination to do the job at hand. I think that's been, for me, this life's work of helping people with Lyme disease. Like so many doctors who have dedicated their whole career to helping people with Lyme, this hit their families and it hit my family. Here's a picture of my lovely crew. This tick-borne world has been part of our life, and probably the hardest period of my wife and I's marriage is as I was discovering, this Lyme disease story, and my wife was very ill, and we had one little child. And then the second one, my oldest Lilia and my second Lucas, it was as they were babies and my wife was pregnant with them that we were going through our deepest health struggles. And I was pouring every resource I could to learn how to help just improve my family. And then as I learned how much Lyme is a big deal, it turned into my whole career, turned into my life. And if you look at this map of Lyme, you realize, it's somewhat regional, but it's a big deal in Minnesota and Wisconsin and the Northeast. Now, there's certainly doctors who would argue that this map is not as regional. Anywhere there's deer, there's probably deer ticks, but we can definitely know that Minnesota and Wisconsin are a big hotspot for people suffering from Lyme disease. And just to go a little bit of stats here, there's about 50,000 cases in Minnesota and Wisconsin every year. So it's a total of about 100,000 in just Minnesota and Wisconsin. And there was a recent 2020 study done by Johns Hopkins that saw that even people who get proper diagnosis and antibiotics within the first 30 days still have a 10% failure rate where they're having pain, fatigue, and abnormal neurological symptoms. And that can be, sleep problems or neuropathy problems or depression, anxiety, or a variety of other things because Lyme hits the nervous system pretty hard. Now, 10% failure rate is pretty high, but that's in an ideal circumstance. If people are not finding it, which we find all too commonly, they estimate that's a 20 to 30% failure rate. If we're going to do the math, if there's 100,000 cases and we're failing at this 10 to 30% of the time, that's like 10 to 30,000 people, in the Midwest every year, year after year after year, at least that are suffering, from Lyme. And this is a pretty big crack in the current medical system. This is some stuff that's coming out in the future that I'm kind of working on. This is a little bit of a preview, but someone asked me, why is Lyme such a big deal and why is it missed? And really it's because there's kind of mistake after mistake after mistake that at every turn we kind of have some assumptions that happen in medicine, and the assumptions Lyme kind of skirts through. So I'll just list just a couple, but one, doctors were originally taught you had to have a bullseye rash. And now we know, well, some people don't get a rash, some people get a rash, but it's not really a bullseye. Yes, if you have the bullseye, it's pretty definitive for Lyme, but you can totally not have the rash and still have Lyme disease. Also doctors run right now what are really outdated tests from the early 90s. They're 30 years old. The technology's gotten much better. There's better tests available, but they are not routinely or standardized run. And those older tests just aren't as accurate. Doctors also are taught that an IgG is a past infection. This is not true. This is, once again, kind of a logical leap. An IgG really just means it's older than a month. And then when you combine that from doctors really think of active infections and they aren't very aware of something that's in a persister state or a biofilm state or a stationary state, all things that Lyme can do that some other bacteria can't do. And that means even sometimes when doctors find it, they'll go, oh, it's not really there. And that's just kind of a false assumption that Lyme kind of slips through. There's also these co-infections that people miss. So it's not just Lyme. In fact, one of the former presidents of the Lyme Association said 93% of his chronic patients had co-infections. And so really not only do we have to run Lyme, we need to run these co-infections. Babesia, Bartonella, Anaplasma are the big three. There's certainly a smattering of others. Powassan virus probably on the top of that list, but Bartonella and Babesia get some attention, but Anaplasma gets very little, and it's a huge deal, specifically in Minnesota and Wisconsin. I'm going to have more coming out about that later in the year. Another thing that happens is we just don't run enough species of Lyme. It was standard to run the one species, which is called Burgdorferi. Now we've discovered over 20 species. And I can't tell you how many times in the office we find someone who the initial test was negative and they just caught a different species of Lyme. And so running the first one we discovered and not running, any of the other 20 we've discovered is just another crack that people slip through that makes them confusing to doctors. And then, lastly, one of the problems we have is that a variety of doctors have been trained because the CDC really did not acknowledge chronic Lyme. So from the mid-90s, as this got codified up until last year, like the CDC just recently in 2022 acknowledged that chronic Lyme, which is also called post-treatment Lyme, actually really exists. But they've been teaching rheumatologists, neurologists, cardiologists, even been teaching infectious disease that this chronic Lyme or post-treatment Lyme is not really a thing. Yes, it's been updated. We're really excited about that. But when you've been teaching all your doctors for 30 years that it's not really a thing and people, it's just all in their head, they're making it up, it's a long education to re-educate your doctor population. This is really a thing. And then also now we need to develop and do more research into standardizing how to go about fixing it. This is just kind of the layers of why people slip through Lyme. I could certainly go more than this, but this is stuff we'll be coming out with more information later this year. I just want you to have hope. I am thankful the CDC recognized things, but we're kind of at a transition point because Lyme was really discovered in the 80s and then really started to codify in the early 90s. You have doctors who have spent their whole career. They were young doctors when this started in their 20s and 30s, and they've been practicing for 30 years. And now they're retiring because they're in their 60s. Some of them are in their 70s. And I think of people who I've had the privilege of learning from, like Dr. Richard Horowitz and Daniel Cameron and Karen Verkota and Neil Nathan and Stephen Buhner. But most of the people I just named are at the very tail end of their career, if not, if they haven't retired or Stephen Buhner passed on recently. And I'm so thankful that people who, as Lyme was being discovered, they spent their whole life fighting for people suffering from Lyme disease. And we're farther because of it. I'm so thankful that these people spent their life and their career doing that. We look at these people as mentors and who taught us, and now we're taking our careers, us who are in their 30s and early 40s, and we're kind of, okay, well, what's the next step and how can we help people go further on the shoulders of these people who founded Lyme foundations and founded associations and really, brought it to where we are now. But I'm excited to where it's going to go, in the future. This is the diagram that I use a lot in the office. And I couldn't build this without, all the knowledge from these other doctors and what they've worked. And, so we just look at this as this is what reality is. This whole model of you take, antibiotics and it's this super simple thing really only works in the acute. It really does not work well for chronic people. If you've had Lyme longer than 3 months, that's just not the method that'll get you better. And instead, it's going to be a more complete approach where if we just go through the colored arrows on this picture, we're trying to help, kill chronic Lyme and kill chronic co-infections. We're trying to help your immune system. Columbia says that you'll never kill all the bug directly, you always need your immune system to mop up and finish the job. So we want to be helping attack the bugs, but also helping your immune system so it can finish the job, so we don't get it recurring, so it gets all the way out. Also, you need raw materials. You need to repair the damage that's been done to your nerves, to your joints, to your mitochondria, to whatever part of your body took the brunt of this needs to be repaired. And then lastly, we need to do rehab. It's just like if you hurt your arm, after your arm's out of the cast, you got to regrow and have it be strong again. So many of my patients, once you've been sick for, months to years to decades, you're not going to have the same stamina even when you get rid of it. And so we tell people there's this strengthening period where you're regrowing neurological connections, or you're regrowing physical stamina. I personally, when I got sick, I could run. I was a very good runner in college, and I could run a mile in about 5 minutes. I got sick, tried to run a mile, and I ran 13:47. It was the hardest mile of my life. And then it took me, 9 months to get back down to about a 6-minute mile. After I got rid of it, then I had to kind of rehab my strength and my stamina and my speed. And at 6 minutes, I said, that's fast enough for Dad. We had family and other things. So I didn't need to run, as fast anymore. So just know there is hope, but it's a more complete model. This is what, I hope becomes, more aware in the future, that these more complete models of helping people who are chronically ill with Lyme can be so much more successful than just, the idea that 2 weeks of antibiotics is a good answer. And lastly, I'll just close with, our company vision is empowering patients, restoring health, and chasing dreams. That's what, to me, 4th of July in America is all about. Is, people came here with a dream of what a country could be. And still, it's the land of opportunity. It's a place where, if you see something, you go for it, and that's what we want you to do. We just want you to have the health to whatever dream you have, whether it's for your marriage, your career, your volunteering, your whatever it is. We want you to have the health to go do that. So I wish you a happy 4th of July. I'm Dr. Warren. I hope you found this helpful.